Hi, this is the Grand Polar, and I have the great privilege of having Rani Chatoorgoon with me, exclusively from Italy at the moment, I think. Is that where you are at the moment?
Correct. That is where I am. It's where I'd like to stay, but
Okay.
we'll see how it goes.
And you're there business, holiday, or?
Yeah, I'm just taking a bit of a holiday with family. It's been a couple years of being shut in and locked up, and as soon as things felt comfortable enough to travel again, kind of looked around at the family and said we wanted to make this trip for some time, but it got delayed for obvious reasons, and just seemed like the right time to take off and come. No tourists, but it's still warm and the sun still shines. So happy to be in Italy, enjoying a bit of relaxation.
As opposed to the freezing cold in Canada.
It's quite chilly there. I keep meaning to check to see if it snowed yet, but definitely overnight. Oh, my mom is waving no, it hasn't snowed yet, but definitely overnight on my phone it tells me what the temperature is at home, and it's below zero at night. And so any day now there's going to be snow. We have the neighbors checking to make sure that the plants survive. Winter's definitely descended upon Canada.
Okay, cool. Rani, just for everyone out there, can you just tell us a little about yourself, how you got into the music industry?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, music had always been part of my life. It's part of my upbringing, but it never really had any formal schooling in it. And I can't really explain why I started writing music. I know when I did, but, I loved listening to music. I loved the coffee house thing and covering songs that I loved just on guitar acoustically. And then one day I found myself with time and the will to try to write something. And I attempted to write something in university and I didn't hate it. And I was going to a fantastic school with a fantastic music program. And as a student, they gave you free access to their engineering studio, because they had a really good Master's of Engineering program. And it was for free. You get an engineer, which was a student. And that was kind of the moment where I remember standing in a booth, producing this little song that I had written and thinking, holy cow, I love this. And I can't believe people get paid to do this. And I kind of knew from that moment that music would have to have some bigger role in my life. And that writing was a great way for me to express myself, to express my thoughts. And to use a Canadianism, things started to snowball. You meet people, you put yourself out there, and the universe returns a couple favors for you, and you find yourself meeting more people and growing as an artist and learning from others. And it just continued to snowball, and my life kind of became this. I have a day job and I work that day job, and when I've saved up enough money, then I'm going to turn around and make something a bit more out of it and put it out there and see who digs it. And if nobody digs it, that's okay.
Well, fortunately there are some people who dig the music. Which brings me to your East-West crossover. How did that all come about?
Quite naturally, actually. So I am the first generation Canadian born to immigrant parents who came from Trinidad and Tobago. And my great-grandparents actually came from India. So they were transported from India to Trinidad. And so that Eastern influence has always been present in my life. I follow the path of Hinduism, and music is an integral part of that. So the notion of Eastern music was very much a part of my life before time that I can even remember. And having such an upbringing rooted in, call it maybe Eastern traditions or Eastern values, but born and raised in the West, in a very modern country, a very contemporary country, I was exposed to music that was of all kinds. And the one that I kind of gravitated towards was the heavier rock music. I became, big fans of bands like Evanescence and Within Temptation, and, go back before I was born, people like Led Zeppelin and Queen, any bands that used heavy orchestra and heavy rock to kind of create these epic sweeping songs. It spoke to me greatly. So when I said, okay, what do I want my music to sound like? It was very natural that I thought to myself, I am a child of two worlds. I exist seamlessly between them, and I'm a product of this Eastern upbringing and this Western world that I've been born, raised, and educated in. And so my music would be a reflection of that as well. I remember I was a teenager, and there was a Canadian band called Tea Party. And the lead singer-songwriter for that band is, they're all a bunch of, honestly, I think they come from farm country in the province of Ontario. So they are multi-generational Canadians, white. But he has a obsession, a passion for Eastern instrumentation. And it was the first time I'd heard very, very heavy music combined with the delicate sitar or a sarangi, or he would play a guitar with a bow, and it would produce a surround like a sarangi. These sounds, which were familiar to me from an Eastern perspective. And they kind of became a little bit of a not a template, but certainly they gave me the confidence that these two sounds could exist together and sound natural. And so I like to say my music is a reflection of me. These two worlds, in one body, in one being. And so my music is also a product of these two worlds, blended seamlessly together. And that's kind of how it happened. Just happened.
Well, you kind of like jumped straight into my next question was, were you always drawn into symphonic rock? Which, obviously you have been. For most of my life, growing up in Canada, what gets played on the radio is very much more pop driven. I think the first artist that I truly loved unconditionally was a Canadian artist named Sarah McLachlan. She was a bit edgier in terms of what was being played on the radio. Yes, I loved a few Madonna songs. Nirvana didn't exist quite yet, but when Nirvana and Pearl Jam came onto the scene, certainly those were bands that my brother introduced me to, or Stone Temple Pilots. But so there are some, call it, gentler pop influences that I love, and I still love Sarah's older stuff, and I still listen to it. But in my later teenage years, and definitely when I started, call it, it's like life. You try a bunch of different things, and you find the one thing that kind of sticks with you, and that heavier symphonic rock stuck with me. And I remember the first time I heard Evanescence, I was doing a long drive home, and it was on the radio, and I said, "What is this? It's amazing. Powerful female vocals, heavy orchestra, heavy rock. Who is this? What is this? I need more." And then, it stuck with me my whole life, which is, it's been decades since I first heard Evanescence, I feel. And then I've got to ask the question, and I know I haven't briefed you on this one, but Rush. I'm a huge Rush fan.
Yes. Sorry. How horrible. I'm a horrible Canadian. Holy cow. Dear Canada, please forgive me. Yes. Rush. Yes, even Iron Maiden. I mean, these more classic rock bands, which, and even when I write music, I identify more with the kind of songwriting they do versus what might be considered popular. I feel like there's more story, or I certainly feel more of a story when I listen to their music. I feel more of a journey in terms of, songs don't necessarily follow a pattern, but they tell a story at the end of it. And all of these bands, inevitably then influence the bands that are of my generation, which have influenced me, and onwards we go and go and go. I mean, I could even throw back to even classical musicians and how that has influenced what I do, but absolutely Rush, up there with Led Zeppelin. I can't believe I forgot it. I feel very embarrassed. If the sun was out, I'd be turning red right now.
No, don't worry. So what instruments do you actually play? Define play. Or?
No, so I play a few things. I wouldn't call myself exceptionally talented at them. But growing up, I learned to play Indian instruments. So I think the first instrument I learned to play was a harmonium, which is, it's a reed-based instrument, double set. It's keys, kind of the Indian equivalent of an accordion in a lot of ways, but it is heavily used within my cultural music, which is why I was introduced to it at, I think, 4 or 3 or something like that. And so a lot of my writing may begin with that instrument because it kind of puts me in a different place versus if I sit with a guitar. So I do play a bit of guitar, self-taught. And occasionally, I will write with a guitar as well. So I can do all of these things. If I'm playing in a gig acoustically, I can certainly handle my songs myself acoustically. I play a little bit of piano. I took lessons for a few years, but I actually didn't really like it. And so I remember kind of gently asking my mom, can I stop, please? And she said, okay. I regret that now, to be very honest. But I can find my way around a piano. I can certainly find my way around a harmonium very comfortably, around an acoustic guitar very comfortably. And I use those instruments to write. Depending on what is what, I will definitely play those instruments in recording, but my philosophy has always been surround yourself with an exceptional team, and I have an exceptional team that does play those instruments far better than I ever could dream of, and I rely on their talent and expertise and creativity to make the music what it is.
It must have been hard to find the musicians who play the Eastern instruments,
Yeah, no, that's very true. And
putting them into a symphonic rock, progressive rock genre.
Yeah, and it certainly was in the beginning. It was a struggle for those musicians to, Indian instruments are very delicate, certainly ones that I use, and it was very difficult for them to figure out their place within such a heavy arrangement. Because from a development point of view, we usually start with the rock arrangement. When I'm writing or working with the producer, I might have instructions such as in this section, XYZ is going to happen from an Indian perspective. And, they're certainly familiar enough with the instruments to know what that might mean from a full arrangement perspective. But in the beginning, it was tough. I got really, really lucky. I've been lucky a lot in this, little career of mine. And I was living abroad in Belgium, and I was going to produce a song with Joost van den Broek, and I'd never produced with him before. So we just said one song, one single. And I kind of just did a bit of a Google search to find local musicians who played a sitar and a sarangi. Somewhere between Brussels and Tilburg, which is where the studio is. And I came across a Belgian gentleman who played sitar, and he happened to have a tabla player from India who was visiting him. So he was doing like a mini tour, and they would go around together, and they had a Belgian sarangi player. And I used, I worked with those three gentlemen on that single. And the truth is, the tabla player is incredible. He's not just a tabla player. He's a composer. He understands the full breadth of Indian instrumentation. He's quite open-minded. So to play this kind of classical Indian music within a heavy symphonic rock structure didn't daunt him. He loved the challenge. And ever since then, he's become like a brother. I call him the Hindi word for brother whenever we talk. And he lives in India, in Kolkata. And the way we work, I've just stuck with him since 2014, because the way we work is we'll talk by Skype, by email, by WhatsApp, and talk about what we want from an arrangement perspective. I forward him a fee, and he just goes out, finds the musicians, books a studio, tracks everything. Sometimes I dial in for those sessions, sometimes I don't. And then he sends off all the files, and always sends us off more than we wanted, and quite enough to work with. And, if something ain't broke, don't fix it. Flip that. Wow, something's not. You know what I'm trying to say. So yeah, I got lucky. I got lucky that I found somebody creative enough and willing to take the challenge. And we found a very easy way to work together in spite of the distance. And it works for us. It works for me. It works for him. It works for my producers. I've got two. And it's efficient. It's effective. And I couldn't ask for anything more. I don't think I would get anything better or more out of it if I was standing in India in a studio with him.
Yeah, it's amazing how it works now, technology. I've produced a couple of bands, And funnily enough, one is in Belgium. And I've never ever physically met them. But, the tracks come across and I say, no, you need to do this, change this. And then I'll sit with the engineer and then we track everything, send it all back and off you go. It is quite amazing.
Don't you love the internet?
Yeah, sometimes.
I really do. Because everybody I work with is everywhere. And obviously I can't be everywhere. And when you're looking to produce things cost effectively, you don't want to be spending money traveling. Exactly. You don't want to be spending money booking big studios.
Bringing guys out just to do a little couple of bits and pieces on a track. Yeah.
Right. And digital sampling is getting so much stronger. I remember there was a track on my last album and I wanted a duduk, which is a Middle Eastern reed instrument. And I follow one on Instagram and we had a conversation and, his fee, he's certainly worth his fee. I never question somebody's fee. When they charge what they charge, it's because they know they're worth it. But he refused to do it unless I was in Spain with him. And it was just the cost started adding up. And in talking with my producer, we found a really good sample set. We composed something digitally. And then I kind of ran it by a few people in Toronto who play the duduk, not professionally, but they have expertise in it. And they were shocked that it wasn't a live recorded instrument, that it was a digital sample. So all of these things are making it easier and easier and helping independent musicians who don't have a lot of funding to create quality tracks.
Right. Well, that's gone right off track. So
sorry.
But no, that's right. But now you've been mentioning and Within Temptation, and you have quite a strong connection with Within Temptation.
Yeah, I mean, again, lucky. I don't know how to explain it. And that was all very random. It was 2009. I'd released my first record. It was self-produced, self-arranged. In short, it wasn't very good. But it was my first attempt to put something out there, and MySpace was still breathing. May have been breathing its last few breaths, but it was still breathing. And so I, put it on Apple and did this big MySpace, hi, my music, my new album, my debut album, and the generic kind of send all message. And I'd been following the musicians from Within Temptation who were on MySpace as well. And I just assumed that, these big rock stars have people who manage their social media. But I was wrong, because when I sent that note out, Rude Jolie actually wrote me back. And I remember I was sitting in my office at my day job and thinking, wait, did this guy just write me back? And he was incredibly kind, incredibly generous, incredibly encouraging. Don't stop, don't give up, et cetera, et cetera. And that was 2009. In December 2010, I decided to produce a single, and I very shyly kind of wrote him through MySpace and said, hey, or maybe we'd become Facebook friends at that point. Either way, I messaged him and I said, hey, I have a song. Wondering if you would like to do the guitars. I know you guys are busy, blah, blah, blah. I basically, asked the question expecting a no, but I got a yes. And that single was Weightless Blood. And again, things just kind of one thing leads to another. And in becoming friends with him, the band came to Toronto in 2011, I think. 2011, I think the band came to Toronto, and that was the first time I met him face to face, and also met some of the other band members. And then I ended up moving to Europe and living like an hour and a half drive away from him, if that far, and met more people through him. It was because I knew him that I was then introduced to the producer, Joost van den Broek. And yeah, he's become a really good friend ever since. He's always, willing to contribute to my work however he can, whenever I ask. Whenever he's in town, by in town I mean back in Canada, make a special effort to see each other. If I am in his hood, the same thing. And really that, how it all happened. Sometimes I stop and the fangirl in me says, how did this happen? I really cannot fathom, from a random MySpace note to this. But I'm very grateful for it, because certainly his involvement, both musically and just from a reputation point of view, has enhanced the quality of my songs, has taken it to another level, has empowered me or given me credibility to meet other people who have continued to help me grow my music. And I am always happy and honored when I have a chance to sit with the band after show and have a glass of wine or just chat about life. They're all every single band member is incredibly kind, incredibly humble, just genuinely down to earth people. I love hanging out with them. I wish I could do it more, but they definitely, that encounter with him changed my life, and certainly knowing all of them, not just as a fan, but as a human being, behind what goes on stage has changed my life as well.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, if you don't throw out a line and take these chances, nothing will happen. No one's going to come to you in the music industry. I mean,
100%. And what I say, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah.
Right? I used to play sports.
Okay, and then just to wrap up, what's the next thing for you? What's coming down the line?
Well, I kind of take it one day at a time. That these times have kind of upended any long-term planning. I definitely have it in mind to produce another EP with Joost. We've been in pre-production for what seems like forever now. He's in very, very high demand, and his schedule is always changing with, bands who he produces for record labels. And so understandably, he's got to prioritize those things. But I'm hoping that within the next year, we produce another EP. After that, I kind of, like I said, take it one day at a time. It's very challenging to self-produce. I certainly don't make enough revenue back from my productions to self-fund. So I got to wait until the money's in the bank, and then I venture out there and see what's what. But from a production perspective, we're well into pre-production. I've written all the songs. We've selected which ones would go on the record. We've had conversations about arrangements. He's working on pre-production arrangements as we speak. I've lined up my players and just kind of given them the heads up that this might be coming from the guys in India to my drummer, my bass player, guitarist, etc. And hopefully, in less than a year from now, you and I will be having another conversation, but this time specifically about a new EP. And take it one day at a time and
hopefully
explore.
Yeah, hopefully the next time it won't be in this format, which I can't stand. But
I understand.
If I had my way, I'd be popping over. We'd be sitting in an Italian coffee shop, which would be far more fun.
That would be fun. The coffee here is delicious. Instead of me sitting here going, is the Wi-Fi working? Does this light make me look washed out? Wait, I haven't put on makeup in a year.
And I'm sitting here waiting for the power to go off.